Ed talked about kind of fundamental principles, and actually, I mean, as you well know, there are some pretty fundamental principles, but the nice thing about them is that they do kind of tend to mention users a bit more, and put users up front. It's fine to say these things are a kind of public asset. That kind of feels like they kind of sit there. It almost kind of still feels with this idea that you're producing something, for user eye relief, we've got this asset out there. I think it's really interesting to think about this. How are these going to be used? What are they going to be used for? Who are the users? And one of the visions set early on by John in his, the National Statistician in his arrival as, into that post was talking about transforming official statistics, central to success, transforming the way we engage with users, developing a deeper and richer understanding of what society needs, which is great, which is actually just an echo of the UN's principles for official statistics, which were formulated in about 1991 onwards, talking about grand things in terms of kind of providing an indispensable element in information system of a democratic society, official statistics that meet the test of practical utility, actually useful for somebody actually wants them, to be compiled and available on a impartial basis. And I think that's kind of what we kind of need to keep an eye on all the time. This is kind of great stuff to have an Office for Statistics Regulation. How is it helping the whole statistical system put this into practice? We're in a data-rich world, as Ed reminded us, but having the data doesn't necessarily mean it's the right data or the data that are useful or usable. So as the Office for Statistics Regulation goes forward, I'll simply be looking for kind of how this takes this vision forward and puts the users at the heart of what you do in the way that you believe that ONS is now putting users at the heart of what it does. Now, let's slide on organisation was where you're going to be visibly separate from production. That obviously was an organisation chart about kind of the organisations that are involved, but I did just wonder there why users were actually invisible in that. So it's rather kind of strange to have an organisation that you don't actually understand why it's there and who it's talking to, other than it's talking to each other. And just to remind ourselves, I mean, statistics are used hugely. It's not just statistics for decision makers. That's often a phrase that you hear people talking about. The first thing we need to do is statistics for policy or statistics for business leaders. Absolutely great, making business decisions, whatever. But we're talking about here about statistics for debate, for education, for information, for kind of browsing through, just kind of getting a feel for what's going on. So I think kind of uses and users are really, really important. Not to over-egg this cake. Ed, you had a great slide about kind of setting the balance between trustworthiness, quality, and value, and you said that value was most important. And I kind of what you were saying about why you can come to that conclusion kind of really chimed with kind of, I think, the way that I've come to see things really, which is that the fundamental principles put great emphasis on meeting user needs, but over the years it's certainly been apparent to me that one of the challenges is that official statisticians do have a tendency to focus more on technical aspects of quality, such as accuracy, rather than on relevance and meeting user needs. And an understanding part why that's there, it's a desire to be as objective as possible, so that the data speak for themselves is the phrase that's sometimes used. But I think some rebalancing of effort is needed at all parts of the official statistics system to get this out. And Charlie Bean referred to his review. I mean, he made that point in terms of ONS refocusing its culture towards better meeting user needs, be proactive rather than reactive in engaging with users and responses to those users' needs. And so looking for as much as we can on that. I'm pleased that you mentioned misuse, because that again features in the fundamental principles. The statistical agencies are entitled to comment on erroneous interpretation and misuse of statistics, etc. More than entitled to comment, and they should really be out there and doing so. And actually, more interesting, the shorthand for this section in the fundamental principles is actually prevention of misuse. And I think that's kind of where your soft powers come in, you and your team, and encourage you to do that. You sort of touched on the role of the media, but I'd like to kind of come back to that a bit, because I think one reason why users are invisible is that the statistics that they use get mediated through the media, both the traditional papers and all the new social media. And we can tend to think that the media has a good role. Anthony Lester talked recently about the crucial role of the press in a modern participatory democracy, acting as a public watchdog, alerting and informing the public about matters of public interest. I mean, that sounds great. That sounds the kind of thing the press should do. But I mean, on a more prosaic level, then perhaps what happens a bit more on the right-hand side of the slide is that kind of there's an insatiable appetite for content. Official statistics actually help meet that demand. They're used in a variety of ways, from substantial analysis and commentary through to a statistic of the day. Official statistics are prepared with that in mind. Some have a news release, some don't. And then whether any statistical release makes it into the media depends on a really kind of opaque process, it seems to me. The item may appeal to a particular journalist or editor. There may be an expectation that the GDP figures are always covered, but not necessarily so. But what about other topics? There was some consideration of how the BBC selects its statistics in a recent review of the impartiality of reporting by the BBC. The review notes it's entirely reasonable that selection from a huge volume of potential statistics should be based on journalist assessment of the credibility of the source and other factors, such as familiarity with earlier outputs. But the review could, quote, find no guidance on how to make such judgments or how they should be applied. So, we might think that media are kind of presenting things clearly, but it doesn't always work like that. And I think it's all, we sometimes forget that it's kind of a bit one-sided, that we should assume that users can kind of cope with all this information that comes out. I'm quite interested in, again, as always, points of interest in what others think. Actually, whether there's an issue about kind of quantitative skills in the audience, in the public, not only in kind of users, but in public more generally. For all these are the kind of issues that are being identified, for example, by the ESRC. I'll pinch this from them, and one of the sorts as well. I don't think the OSR has any role in this, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think you need to be aware that there are issues around what some people call statistical literacy, others people call kind of quantitative skills. One of my words was kind of confused, and so rather than confused.com, this is confused.uk, because as you pointed out, Ed, at the moment there is a lot of confusion between UKSA and ONS. That's inevitably how we refer to these organisations in stats user meetings, is UKSA/ONS, because nobody's quite sure what we're talking about. We also have a ONS/GSS, because we're not quite sure whether we're talking about the whole of the GSS or whatever. Now I think we've got OSR/UKSA/ONS/GSS, unless we can kind of solve this and get some clearer. And I think I'm with you on the branding point, which is, you mentioned the word promise, and I think there's kind of a lot more to be done here for all sections, for all those four components, to make sure that we can use branding powerfully, or you can use branding powerfully to get some clarity as to what the different parts of the official statistics system are there for. Well, okay, finally to mousetraps. In the world of marketing, you're warned, never build a better mousetrap and assume that the world will be the path to your door. I'm not saying you've built a better mousetrap, but you might just bear this in mind as I go through this. What I'm thinking of here is that often official statisticians think they're building a better mousetrap, and that the world will obviously want a new set of statistics or some revised statistics or whatever. But most people have discovered that it's not quite as simple as that. You kind of need to understand, and this is what I think should also be reflected out to official statisticians. What are your customers' needs? What's the competition? What's your value proposition? What does the market analysis reveal? These are not words which I think are much used around the official statistics world, but would be interesting to see if they are in future, and if you will be encouraging the LMS and the GSS to think in these terms. So that's basically it. I think we need the Office for Statistics Regulation to give you your proper title, as much and more so than ever. You had a quote, I found a quote which I quite like, goes back to 1983, when in the world of international development, WCS were quite searchingly about this, that we can't rely on the stuff that we normally rely on. Talked about kind of a very random selection sample of what we perceive on. So at that stage, in the kind of 1980s, he was arguing for better statistics in order to maintain at least a model of the world. As you point out, the world has changed. Some 35 years on, the volume, frequency, and detail of material that's available to us has all increased massively, and this includes statistics of all kinds. We still need sound to help us have access to and to recognise official statistics that are useful and trustworthy.